Character name: Baxter Talesworth species. Border Terrier, age 7, in dog years. But speaks and thinks like a 45-year-old detective philosopher personality. Witty, impulsive, fiercely loyal, with a nose for trouble, but a heart that always tries to do the right thing. Special trait: can read, remembers everything, and often quotes great thinkers like Confucius, Shakespeare, and Scooby-Doo. Lives in a slightly crooked but charming cottage behind the bakery in Willowbrook, a town where animals and humans coexist peacefully mostly. Flaw: has a knack for overcomplicating things and occasionally bending the truth to suit his own version of justice. Episode 12. The Goat Who Wanted Wings. Willowbrook was full of stories. Stories of things that made sense, like harvest dances and squirrel tax collectors. Stories that didn't, like talking mushrooms and ambitious goats. Alonzo was one of the latter. He was a goat with stars in his eyes and bruises on his knees. His obsession: flight. To most it was nonsense. Goats don't fly. They climb, stumble, and occasionally cause local mayhem. But Baxter Talesworth wasn't most. He'd been watching Alonzo's attempts from his usual post behind the bakery, his tail still, his mind calculating. Baxter wasn't just the town's unofficial fixer. He was the listener, the one who saw past noise and foolishness to the heart behind it. He'd helped liars confess, healed friendships shattered by pride, and once, allegedly, mediated peace between a fox and a rabbit. So when Alonzo tied balloons to his horns and tumbled into the community compost heap, Baxter decided it was time to intervene. He showed up the next morning with a thick scroll of blueprints. "You want to fly?" Baxter said. "Then stop falling on purpose." They built in secret, repurposed kite strings, an old curtain rod, bent bicycle spokes. Every piece tested, every launch measured. The day of the flight, Willowbrook gathered, half curious, half concerned. Alonzo stood atop the barn with his makeshift glider strapped to his back. "I believe," he whispered. He jumped. For 5 glorious seconds, he glided, truly, clearly. The wind caught the wings, lifted them gently, carried him over the pumpkin patch and into a mound of soft hay. The town erupted. Even the skeptics clapped, because it wasn't just the flight. It was the faith in it. Later, sipping tea with Baxter, Alonzo said, "That felt like more than air under me." Baxter smiled. That was belief, mostly mine, and a little bit of science. In his bar clog that night, he scribbled, "Everyone says goats don't fly. But if you listen long enough, even a crash can sound like applause." Episode 13. The library in the fog wasn't unusual in Willowbrook. It rolled in like old stories oft at first, then thick with meaning. But this fog was different. When it lifted, the town library had vanished. Gone, not burned, not collapsed, simply not there. Most assumed a prank. Durs blamed weather spirits. But Baxter Talesworth, with his coat damp and his mind sharp, suspected something else. The library wasn't just a building to Baxter. It was where he'd first learned to read per-written notes, decipher clues, and on rainy days lose himself in ancient tales of talking beetles and silent detectives. He followed a trail of torn catalog cards into the woods. There, in a wildflower clearing, stood the library. Reassembled, reimagined. Wooden shelves spiraled between trees, beanbags nestled in roots, lanterns glowed with firefly light. And in the middle, curled under a blanket, was Ivy, the squirrel librarian, quiet, kind, crumbling. "I couldn't breathe," she said softly. The silence inside was too loud. The noise outside was louder. Baxter didn't ask her to explain. He just helped rearrange the history section. They turned the place into a secret sanctuary. A second library, one for reflection, rest, and rediscovery. Eventually, the town's library returned, brick by brick. But the forest branch remained. Ivy found peace, and Baxter found yet another truth to scratch into his bar clog. Sometimes, the mind needs a library. But the soul? The soul needs a forest of pages, with space between the words.